Hello, and welcome to our third video tutorial on how to read and use VFR sectional charts as unmanned aerial system or UAS operators. This series of videos is brought to you by AmericaView in partnership with the College of Natural Resources and Environment at Virginia Tech, the Virginia Cooperative Extension, and Geoted UAS. My name is Daniel Cross, and I will continue to be your guide. In this video, we will take a look at the legend and symbology of a sectional. We will, however, reserve airspace, special use airspace, and topographic information for their own videos. While most of this information may not seem immediately useful, it will come in handy for those who have yet to take their Part 107 exam. Let's start with airports. The first thing you will have noticed about airport symbols are that they come in two colors, blue and magenta. The magenta airports are uncontrolled airports, or airports without a control tower. These airports are often, but not always, in uncontrolled airspace, where you can operate under Part 107 as long as you do not pose any risk or cause any other air traffic to have to deviate from their flight operations. The blue airport symbols mark those airports that do have control towers. These airports will be in controlled airspace. However, some may revert to uncontrolled airspace when the control tower closes. Next, we have a number of different symbols for depicting airports. Most will be displayed on the map as colored circles with white lines marking the rough layout of the runways. These are airports with paved runways that are 1,500 feet to 8,069 feet in length. Airports with runways longer than 8,069 feet will be marked with a blue or magenta outline of their runways. Airports with radio navigation aids will also have a white dot at the approximate location of the nav aid. That covers the normal airports, but there are many different types of airport. The most common of these other airports will be private airports, which are marked by a circle with an R in the middle. These can be relatively busy airports owned by a club or a small grass strip that's only used once or twice a year. Next we have heliports, which are marked with a circle with an H in the center. They're most often going to be on or near hospitals. It's especially important to know if you're near a heliport, since helicopters often fly lower than fixed-wing aircraft. Another type of irregular airport is a seaplane base, which is marked with an anchor symbol. Like the name suggests, this is going to be a body of water where float planes and flying boats often operate from. Seaplane bases can be a little trickier since there are no defined runways to indicate the pattern for manned air traffic. So if you are flying near one, keep an eye out for aircraft coming from unexpected directions. Abandoned airports are only marked on the map if they make good visual references for pilots of manned aircraft. Those that do make the cut are marked with a circle with an X crossing it out. These may seem like a great place to fly since they are large, flat, open areas. However, when I was training for my private pilot certificate, we often used abandoned airports to practice emergency landings, so be aware that the possibility of unexpected air traffic does exist. The next section of the legend is the airport data section. This is something that you will need to be able to decode for the Part 107 exam, and they are often difficult to read on the map. The legend does a good job of explaining this, so instead of reading it to you, let's decode the information for Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky International. Buried in this cartographic mess is the information for this airport. First, it tells us that the special visual flight rules are not allowed at this airport. Second, we have the name of the airport, followed by the three-letter identifier, Charlie Victor Golf. Under that, we have the control tower frequencies marked by CT. In this example, the airport has 3 different radio frequencies, but most will only have one. On the next line, we have the frequency for ATIS, or Automated Terminal Information Service. This is a frequency that you can use to get airport, NOTAM, and weather information. The last line tells us that the airport elevation is 896 feet above mean sea level. The L says that the airport lights are on from sunset to sunrise. The number 120 tells us that the longest runway is 12,000 feet long. And the last number is the Unicom frequency, or airport advisory frequency. The next two sections of the legend relate to radio navigation aids. The only reason you as a UAS operator will need to understand this part is for filling out DROTMs with 1-800-WX brief. When you're filing a DROTM, you will need to give the bearing and distance from a radio nav aid, which means you will need to know how to find them. For our purpose, it doesn't matter what type of nav aid you use, so the easiest way to find one is to look for the compass rose on the map. Each nav aid will have an informational box with it. We only need to know the name of the nav aid and the 3-letter identifier. In this case, the Pulaski Vortex ID is Papa Sierra Kilo. Continuing onward, we have obstructions. First, I would like to note that sectionals do not contain every tower or possible obstruction, so always carefully scout your area of operations. The majority of obstructions will be communication towers. Towers under 1,000 feet in height, but above 200 feet, will be marked with a small cone with a dot underneath. Towers 1,000 feet or higher will be marked with a symbol that looks like the Eiffel Tower. The other major obstruction that is marked on sectionals are wind power turbines and wind farms. Individual turbines are marked with a turbine symbol, whereas wind farms are marked with several turbine symbols enclosed within a blue hashed line. If the obstacle has a warning light on it, then the symbol will have a series of lightning bolts shooting off the top, and if there's more than one tower or turbine, then there will be a cluster of symbols merged together. The last note about obstacles is that there will always be a series of 2 numbers nearby. The top number indicates the altitude in MSL of the top of the obstruction, or the highest if there's more than one. The second number, the one in parentheses, indicates the height of the obstacle above the ground, which is more useful for us since many UAS do not report their altitude in MSL. The last section of the legend we're going to cover is miscellaneous information. Here, the most important symbol is the other flight activity symbol. These symbols tell us there is some other aviation-related activity going on in the area, such as ultralights or parachuting. You should treat these areas just like you would a non-towered airport. We can fly here, but we must be extra vigilant so we don't create any risks or cause manned air traffic to have to deviate from their flight operations. The rocket symbol indicates that this is an area where spacecraft are launched from, and probably means that it's also going to be a restricted or prohibited area. Next are the Isogonic Lines, which are magenta hashed lines that cross the map. These tell you that there is a difference between true north and magnetic north in that area. In this example, the magnetic difference is 10 degrees to the west. The last 2 symbols are VFR waypoints, or areas that are readily identifiable from the air. These are marked with either a black 4-pointed star or a magenta flag, and a name associated with that waypoint. And that brings us to the end of this video. Please continue to the next video in the series where we will discuss airspace. Thank you for joining us, and fly safe.